Hello, everybody. Oh, I need to now. I'm going to have to check some stuff because
People still say "wada."
see if everything is working correctly. But I believe it might be. Folks can let us know if they can hear us. If they can hear you, can hear
Testing,
me.
testing.
I
One,
can
two,
hear
three.
you.
A B C D E F G.
Okay, I can definitely hear you. Sounds good. All right. Well, we can get straight into it then. So, for those who don't know, David and I have taught a workshop for the last, well, before COVID, many years.
50 years.
Yeah, a few years, and at NDC, mostly at NDC conferences, Australia and London and Oslo, and so on. And it was an Asp Net Core app building workshop. And during the course of the workshop, we build an app, as you might think from the name of the workshop. And we typically obviously update it every version. Now, .NET 6 is a pretty big release. It's a new LTS release. It's our first LTS since the grand unification post .NET Framework 4X. But I thought this would be good to do this sort of just live and unscripted.
Life.
Yeah, like cold. Like I haven't looked at it at all. I spent all my time preparing this rotating background in my chroma key. I didn't spend any time looking at the app. And so we'll go in and we'll talk through some stuff as we're doing it. And hopefully we can see, the various, yeah, your skeleton foot, the various levels of migration. You're a bit chopped off on that side. You can see the other side. It was your left hand's the right hand. So I mean, I can almost point it out too. Oh, there it is. It's up there. All right. So let's flip over to my screen and we'll show you the repo that we'll be working from. So this is at .NET presentations on GitHub /ASP.NET Core -app -workshop. Oh, sip of afternoon coffee. Someone is asking what OBS comment plugin we're using. We're not using an OBS plugin. I haven't. Well, let me highlight that and see if I can actually make this work. This is using a website called featured.chat. And I hurriedly put that together yesterday, or found that, I literally Googled for like highlight a chat message on Twitch using OBS, and this website came up. And it's really good. So I can see the, go and check it out if you're a Twitch streamer, but it works really well. And then I should be able to close it and it fades away. And it just uses a browser source in OBS, like all the good plugins do. You just point it at a website and it does it all for you. So this is the repo we'll be using. A bunch of other folks have taught this workshop. It's not just you and I. Yep. So like John Galloway, we've had Scott Hansman with us more than once. Scott Hunter has taught this with me in Sydney. In fact, I think the last time I was meant to teach this, it was in Sydney in 2019 in October, and I got horribly sick. And it was one of those, horrible nightmares where you travel very long way across the country. Obviously I live in America now, so traveling all the way back to Australia. I went down to see my mum for a couple of nights beforehand, and I developed some terrible cold, flew up to Sydney, and then proceeded, once I got to my hotel room, to never leave it, other than to go to the doctor. And I was basically bedridden for 3 days during the conference. So I didn't get to teach the workshop at all. Hunter, and I think there was some other couple of people there who managed to do it without me, which was great. Very thankful for that. And then I had to fly home sick, which is terrible. And obviously, given everything we've all been through in the last couple of years, that's the last thing I'd want anyone to have to go through. But then I got home and recouped. So that was my last... No, that was my second last trip, because the last trip you and I did together was literally
London.
Post-COVID starting, but before COVID like really exploded, I guess, globally.
On the plane following us back to America.
We were in London in January.
Oh, so terrifying.
Yeah, and people were talking about it. And we taught this workshop in January of 2020 in London. And then obviously we got home. I think I went to Hawaii for my winter holiday in February. And when I came back, I took the kids out of school, and then they hadn't, that was it. That was the beginning of...
Because it started around the corner from my house.
It did, literally. So Fowler lives nearby to the hospital, which had the first admitted case in the US, and the I think it was the nursing home or the care center where unfortunately a lot of folks got sick and didn't survive early on. So yeah, it was very close to home at the beginning. Anyway, we are at home now. You're obviously at your house. I'm at my house. This is the first time we've tried to do it like this. We're not teaching the workshop today. We're just going to spend a couple of hours updating this app and talk through it as we go. So if you want to follow along, you can do so up here at .NET Presentations, ASP Net Core App Workshop. Fowler, I'll ask you to monitor the chat if I'm talking, and I'll do the vice versa whenever you're talking. So if there's anything interesting, we can highlight it and answer it. I'd love for this to be interactive. Obviously, it's completely unscripted. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm using bits of .NET that may or may not have been released yet, and bits of Visual Studio that I'm sure are completely fine to show. And we'll go from there. So I have this cloned already. ASP Net Core out. I'm going to create a branch because I don't want to do all this in main. We'll call this the .NET 6 stream. Let's create a branch. All right, so we're in a branch now. I guess I should just open this in Visual Studio, hey? Let's find this thing.
What's up, Damian? The comment.
Come a long way in your video appearances since appearing on Channel 9. Oh my goodness, which one is that?
Hey, ASP Net, look at that.
Oh, speaking of being sick, was that the one I co-did with Levi and Brad?
Yep.
Okay, I had the flu. How have we picked the two topics? I had the flu. I was late getting into the studio. We delivered that talk and then I went home. And when I say I had the flu, I actually had the flu. Like I've only had the flu maybe 3 times in my life. That was one of those times.
Ooh, good question. Let me put this one up. This is a
good
good question.
Go for it.
I mean, the answer is no, but will Update Assistant support migration from .NET 6 to the .NET 7 hosting models? I think you mean 5
interesting.
to 6 or pre 6 to 6. Like we didn't have plans to do that, but we could.
We could. Yeah. So far, it's been completely focused. My understanding, anyway, is that it's been focused on like pre.NET Core to .NET Core era migrations.
It is.
And including WinForms apps, WPF apps, ASP.NET to ASP.NET Core, which is obviously a fairly, a bigger migration, and class libraries and things like that. That's an interesting question. Like, could we update it to support moving between .NET versions now? And that's a good reminder, actually, is that before we just jump into this, we should go and look at the docs, because there are some docs on this stuff.
There are docs
now. So if we do ASP.NET Core migration docs, let's see if Bing can give me the right. Look at that. No, that's ASP.NET to ASP.NET Core. Here we go, from 5 to 6. So here it is, the official guide that was updated 2 days ago. So this should be fairly straightforward of the steps that you need to go through to update your ASP.NET Core projects to ASP.NET Core 6. So it covers the standard stuff. You change your SDK, change your TFM, which obviously we'll do first, update package references, and then the biggest stuff, which is what changed between these releases. From release to release, I think it's fair to say we kind of aim to really just allow it to be those first things. Like you should be able to take the vast majority of projects and change their TFM, install the new SDK, change the TFM, update your packages, and stuff should just be fine. If idioms have changed or we have introduced new features which are designed potentially to replace older ones, or maybe replace is the bad word, be used more often now because for whatever reason, alluding to what's on the screen right now, the hosting model, then there'll be docs on how to do that. But you don't have to do that. Like you make that choice when you want to start doing the work to migrate from API A to API B, assuming API A is still around. Now, and we take deprecating API incredibly seriously in the sense that we very rarely do it, like literally delete the APIs. There is a process for doing so. We have obsoleted a few things. And I think we have a cycle where we take N releases now. I can't remember what it is now that we have LTS and whatnot. Thank you for my jargon descrambler. Where if we have an API that we want to delete, then we'll mark it obsolete in one version, so it'll show up as a compiler warning or error if you've got that turned on. and then we'll delete it in the next major version after it was obsoleted. So you get like 2 major version cycles. There's even been some discussion of extending that to 2 LTS cycles, if I recall, but I don't know that we ever made a firm decision on that. I think that the other thing that's worth pointing out is this is only, well, I said before, it's our first LTS release of the sort of new unified .NET, but it's only our second LTS going back to .NET, Core 3.1, which was kind of our, as is often the case, version 3 was the one where a lot of the stuff finally kind of landed the way that we wanted. And this is our first LTS since then. And so I'm going to imagine a lot of folks may have been waiting for this version before they take the dive and go in to migrate their .NET Framework stuff, or even choose .NET newer versions to use new projects, to build new projects with. So that's the hosting model, and then there'll be a bunch of other stuff. Look, differences between the old and new hosting models. What else is in here? Building libraries for Asp Net Core. What's changed there? There's a bunch of FAQs. There's a section on Blazor. There's stuff about Docker, so on and so forth. How about we just ignore all the docs and you and I just try and figure it out, because why not? That's fun. So let's have a quick tour of this project. This solution, I should say, is 3 projects. It's a backend, which runs a bunch of web APIs, and Entity Framework. It's a front end. Why is this Netcore App 3.1? Did I get the wrong branch? We have updated this to 5.
No, when?
We never updated it to 5? Seriously? Hang on. Let's check that, because I don't trust that.
You pull.
Remember I changed the branch yesterday. I renamed master to main.
The main.
I think I got it right. Look, everything here says update to 3. So we might be updating from 3 to 6.
Good,
I don't see any branch. Look, there's my 3.1 branch from last time.
LTS to LTS.
Did no one update this to 5? No. I don't believe that.
I'm gonna fire somebody for sure. Fire
Brady,
ourselves.
if you're watching.
We're going to fire ourselves.
Did we? I am genuinely surprised. All right, LTS to LTS. Let's do it. I'm actually super surprised about that. All right. Nothing changed between 3 and 5. It's fine. So we've got our backend. We've got our front end, which is our Asp Net Core web application, which uses Razor pages and some other stuff. You can sign in and create profiles. And then there's a shared class library for shared types between the two. First step is, let's see if this even runs, right? I haven't run this on this machine in a while. So I'm just going to Control F5. I'm going to launch it. I set the front end as the startup project. And I don't know what's going to happen. Bit rot and all that type of thing.
Do you have 3.1 installed?
That is a fantastic question. Whoops, let's go have a look. My browser launched. List runtimes. I do. I have a 3.1 runtime. Oh, look, I got the exception.
Your backend is down.
That's fine. So that's good. I can deal with that. So I do have 3.1 installed, and I have 5.0, and I have more than one RC2 of 6.0, but that'll be fine. All right. So this is telling me that the front end can't talk to the back end. Yeah?
Yep.
So let's go and look at what I've configured these to be. My back end is currently set up to run on, let's go into the properties. We're going to launch settings. It is set to run on that port, which is on IIS Express on localhost. So let's see if it's actually running. Let's have a look. Localhost on that port. Is there anything there? Didn't fail.
Good.
Ooh.
Did fail.
Nope. Connection refused. So I'm going to hazard a guess that it's not actually running on there, or I didn't start it first, which I have to do. So I need to set this as the startup project. Where is it?
We have a question that's pretty interesting.
Already?
Right.
Yes. So the question is, are we going to show the app running on the new version? We're going to go straight from 3.1 to 6. And then after that, are we going to add new features or migrate code to the sort of new features, new idioms? Yes, that was the intent. If everything goes well, what we'll see is that moving from one version to another by itself is pretty trivial. And you don't really have to do much except change some version numbers and recompile. And then once that's completed, we'll then proceed to talk about what's different, and we can update some of the more controversial changes or more meaningful changes that might take a bit more work. So my back end is definitely working now. If I go back to the front end and hit F5, let's see if my front end can talk to my back end. Nope. I'm getting closer though. Yeah. So I have a sense, Fowler.
Did you run migrations?
Oh, it's not that.
Oh, is it running all?
Yeah, it's that. That's the thing.
Did you start both?
No. So because we have two sites here, we need both of them to start, right? So I'm going to go into the solution properties and I'm going to change it to multiple startup projects, back end and front end. In fact, it looks like there was some latent memory of that because both of those are set to start. We'll see what happens now. I'll control F5 again, which means that both of them will start. And of course, it'll handily give me another browser window. And, well, that's better. All right, that's better. So I got a front end now, which is talking to my back end, but my front end is throwing an exception. And I think all of this is just set up, right? So what's the exception? I don't know. It says it tried to talk to the back end and there was an exception. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to guess that there's no database set up. What do you reckon?
Yep.
So let's go and what do we do? Get sessions.
Then you don't have any tables probably.
We'll try it out. Hit execute. Look, there's an error. So my back end is throwing the error. All right, so let's go and... What's that?
Can't touch the error. Can't. Go back. You want
to go see the error?
Is right. I'm trying to touch it.
So this isn't particularly useful, seeing it here. If I come back here, I can, right now, for this version, I can check the back end in my output down here. And I can see there's an exception right here. And it's saying that entity framework... error code trying to connect to the database call, blah, 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 some nice long connection string on local DB. It doesn't exist. I haven't set up the database. So what's the easiest way for us to set up the database as configured in the app already? Fowler, what do I do?
Migrate this thing.
Migrate? So I command line?
I got super blurry on your lead Skype.
I think your camera's decided you're not in focus. Yeah. Just do the hand trick. And then like let it see if it finds your face. No, it is not. So someone asks, do you recommend using IIS Express anymore or just using Kestrel directly? So funnily enough, that's one of the changes in our defaults between 5 and 6 is that we used to default to IIS Express by default in Visual Studio. And we now default to Kestrel. And so we'll make that change at one point. Let's just get the app working first. Obviously my machine has not been set up correctly for this app yet. So I'm going to go to, where am I? I'm in the back. I'm going to go to the back end of this application. Do I have .NET EF installed? Let's have a look. Nope. So I'll install that. Tool, install -g, .NET EF, -- version. I wonder if this works. 6.6.star-star. Right? Because that'll give me the latest preview version.
That works?
Yeah, because I asked, remember we got that working last couple of years ago.
We got working.
Yeah. So now I have .NET EF. Look at that. Awesome. What do I type? .NET EF database something? Create?
Migrate. .NET EF.
Drop an update. Update, you think?
Yeah.
Or do I have to run migrations? I never know which one's right.
Migrations.
Okay. And I run and I do what? No, that's for adding and removing, right? It's the other one.
It's update probably.
You ready?
Yeah. This thing is blurry.
Maybe lean in so it finds your face. It really doesn't like you anymore.
It was working like just now. Like,
it was fine, and then it wasn't.
Blur all of a sudden.
There's nothing like covering the lens or anything, right?
Probably has cataracts.
Oh, there's something on it. Seriously.
The light, probably?
There's something on the lens. No, other side. Yeah, that. Whatever that is.
Where? This thing?
Then on your right-hand side. Yeah, that. What is going on there?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's moved.
I might.
Let me debug it. Let me debug it real time.
You can debug yourself while I debug the fact that this doesn't build. So I can't build at the moment because the site is running. So I need to stop the sites. We've all had that. Let me find IS Express. Where's my IS Express? There it is. Exit. Oh. Yes, I'm going to close them all. Okay. Let's try that again. Build. Yay! Right, EF. Let's see if we can get EFA. So the EF command can't work if the app doesn't build. Because it builds on your behalf, and then EF kind of bootstraps your app and then reaches inside of it in order to discover configuration, like what's the connection string, and then also to discover the configuration of EF itself. All right, so it's telling me that the database already exists, and I need to choose a different database name. So the database is already there. So shouldn't that be enough? Shouldn't have to do anything now, right?
Scroll up. Oh.
Right? Says it's already there, but it might mean maybe I should delete it and start again. All right? What do you reckon? Drop?
Drop. So everyone does.
This feels familiar from the workshop. There's a lot of dropping of databases, and yes, let's drop the local database.
Something is happening. Before it was perfect.
It really looks like there's something on your lens.
I didn't even know that. That's like a bright light doing something. Look at that. Look at that.
It was beautiful before. It looked really good. All right, let's try it again. .NET EF database update. As Nick says, Nick Craver, who now works with us and used to work at Stack Overflow, if anything doesn't work with your database, then you just delete it and start again, right?
Oh, okay, it works now. Interesting.
Now, what did you do? Turn a light off or on?
Yeah, turn it off, but no.
Oh, you're kind of ghosty. You're like you're a ghost. This is awesome.
That's fine.
Okay, but so it really doesn't like me. It's like this database already exists. All right, so let's see if it runs. Huh?
What did you run?
I ran database update after running database drop. But the database instance itself already exists, right?
The file, are we doing local DB?
Yes. Which means that I have done this before on this machine 2.5 years ago.
This is the solution.
All right, so I'm going to go and see if I can find it. I'm going to use the tools. Let's go into Visual Studio. Let me find my database tools. Which ones am I supposed to use again? I'm supposed to use the SQL one, right? See if I can find it.
Wait, what are you doing?
I'm going to use the SQL. There it is. SQL Server Object Explorer. There it is. Local DB.
Yay, it's still working, but the sun is still there.
All right. What have we got? Databases. Look, there it is. Backend. Tables. It's loading.
Is it uppercase E? Is it backend?
That's not the problem. That's not the problem.
It's definitely a problem.
The fact that both of these are still spinning, that's the problem. Cannot open database. Login failed. How about we do this? Unable to open the physical file. Operating system error 2. That is spectacular. So let's remove that. Can I remove it?
Deletion failed.
Wow.
Oh, you don't have permission. See that?
Yeah.
See that?
Does not exist.
Are you on some weird different account than who made the database?
It's not. It's literally, look, where's the path.
Just change the name of the database.
You know what? Let's just change the name and let it create a new one.
Yeah.
So let's go to my app settings. There it is. And we'll change this to Asp Net Backend live stream. How about that? Now we'll come back to here and we'll run database update, yeah? Yes. That's what we're going to do. And it's going to work.
The camera's too high.
Someone asked, sorry, what are we trying to do? It's like, what are we trying to do? We are simply trying to get the existing app working first before we update it. A little bit of bit right here. So it'd be like, look, see? Green. Green now. All right. So now the database is up to date. I'm going to run this again. Control F5.
I like a ghost now. No, I'm a focused ghost.
I can adjust you on my end. Give me a second.
What's happening?
I'm going to see if this app is working first.
Camera is like pointing too high now. That's why I've seen that freaking light. I think maybe.
No. That'll be. I'll need to adjust it on this end, mate. But you've still got that lights back. Whatever you. Okay. When you put your hand up, it is in front of your hand. It looks like it's in front of your hand on Skype.
I know.
So I don't know what you did differently.
It moved. Oh, maybe I pull something forward.
All right. Let me see if this works now. Let me go to my sessions. I'm going to get all the sessions. Let's try it out. We'll hit execute. All right. There are no sessions. Look, it's empty. No error. Excellent. Back end.
They're working?
Not working yet. So the back end works. The front end is probably a null ref because there's no data in it. So we need to seed this database with a bunch of stuff, right?
No ref? I have no ref. Talking about.
That seems unlikely, doesn't it? All right, so we have a couple of... You wrote all this code. Do you remember how this works?
The front end or back end?
The back end database seeding.
Back end is perfect. The front end is all you.
Yeah, that's fine. We're talking about the back end right now. The back end has no data in it. We need to add data.
Has no bugs.
So how do we add the data to the back end? Do you remember?
Yeah, we uploaded a file that was in the workshop.
We do that via Swagger, don't we?
Yeah.
So in here, there should be... Where is it? Upload. Beautiful. And then I should be able to upload a file, which I sessionize, and I choose the file from where we are. GitHub, here, backend, and then there's a data folder if I recall. Import. So we'll do the last NDC we did, which was 2020. Okay, execute. It didn't fail, so that's good. Moment of truth. Yeah, front end works. For those who don't know Nick, I put posts very nicely edited, like 10 to 15 minute videos regularly on his YouTube channel, and I know I like them and a few others on the team like them. This is not that. This is raw consciousness, figuring things out as we go. Mr. Blurry Cam, my guest over here, because for whatever reason, he's destroyed his camera. I don't know what you have done to your camera, man. But the app is now working. So we can actually start the process of updating it now. Let's update the, what do you want to do first? The back end or the front end?
Back end.
Back end, all right. I tend to edit the CS proj, but I really should, show that you can go.
Use the CS proj, please.
You go into, I'm just going to show that you can go in here and you can just say, 3.1. Let's make it .NET 6. And then hit save. Now, will this work? Do I have to update these packages, Fowler?
Yeah.
Why? Why can't
it'll do something?
I could try and run it.
One thing. Yeah, try it.
You think I should try it? All right.
Be brave.
Okay, built it. Does it still work? I don't trust it. Like, it was too fast. Look. It didn't do anything. How do I know that it actually shut down? Shall I control F5 again?
Why is my camera so blurry? This is just like...
All right. There you go. You had it. It was there. There you go. You've muted yourself.
Oh.
Okay, there you go. You are now in focus.
The camera's just confused.
Your camera got confused?
I have to turn the light back on. It's dark in here now. It's super dark.
All right. You're going to be a little see-through today, but that's fine. All right. So it is .NET 6. It's not updated yet. And it says it works. I'm having a hard time believing it, though.
Look at the background.
You were just like bleeding into the background now.
This is so good.
See if I can fix you quickly. Professional.
This is recorded, right? Perfect.
Always. Yeah, that'll do. You're a bit better. You're a bit better. All right. How can I tell that what this is running on, Fowler? I don't trust that it's actually running on 6. What should I do?
Print out.
Shall I attach to it?
Runtime description.framework version.
What, you think I should like add an API that prints out what version it's on?
That's a lot of work. Hold on. Is there a way to do this that's easy? Blah, blah, blah.
Can I just attach and then look at the modules?
Yeah. That.
All right. So I'm going to attach to this process. I'm going to find it, which will be interesting because it's one of these. I'll just attach to both of them.
My background looks all crazy on thing.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like how the look of that.
There we go. I bumped it up a bit for you. All right. So I've attached. Let's go and find our modules. It's still thinking. Debug, Windows. Where's my modules window? There it is. All right. Let's look for MVC.
Just change the thing. Yeah, expand the thing. Yeah.
All right. It's definitely running on 6. Okay. So I was. We have confirmation. All I did was update the TFM. I haven't updated the packages. Everything appears to be working. If I get sessions. All right. Oh, look. Except it isn't. It exploded. Sequence contains one or more matching element. Did something change that would cause Entity Framework to throw something in link? Or is it probably my code? Anyway, let's see if we can fix it by updating these packages. I'm going to do it using the NuGet dialog because I don't want to think about the version numbers.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's update everything. We're just YOLOing it, right? Everything. Swashbuckle, everything, go.
Okay, change the camera map now. Let's see if it works. I just fixed the light.
Did you?
I mean, not me, my wife.
Oh, I got to update these packages. Yes, go, go, go.
Honestly, this UI, I like using the UI sometimes when I can't find the package.
Yeah.
But it feels like just too much work when I know the numbers.
It's too many clicks. That's what I feel like. It's like I want a quicker way if possible. Oh, look. This is interesting. I'm getting an obsolete error.
Nice.
This is obsolete. We deprecated the database error page. What is it telling me to do? Now, first of all, I guess, does it build? Before I even do that, let's just see if it builds. I updated a bunch of packages. Yes, it builds. Is the site still running? The site is reloading. That's what that little icon there means, is Visual Studio is refreshing it for us. There we go. Before we had hot reload, which is in 6, we had browser refresh in Visual Studio, and that's what that was. You build it and it rebuilds it for you. Okay, so it's running. Can I get my sessions without exploding? I can. So don't just update the TFM. It might look like it's working. You really need to update the packages as well. Okay, we do get that question quite a lot. Can I use version 5 of this package on .NET Core on .NET 6? And the answer is always maybe. We don't guarantee it, right? It's a major version. We're not going to guarantee that it's going to work. All right, so what am I supposed to replace this with? It says this is obsolete, will be removed in a future version. Use database developer page exception filter instead. Okay. Is that in here? App.use database. See that? I don't have I don't have that.
That's not a thing.
I don't have that. I think it's in a different package.
Is it in? Really? Is that what we did?
I think it's in the diagnostics package.
Go back to the use.
It's right there. I do have it, right?
Isn't there a URL in the error message?
There was. You think I should read the error?
You should click on the thing.
Read the docs?
Yeah.
All right.
Has an
AKMS database developer page exception filter. I mean, I can't click.
Copy it.
Can I click it? I can't.
Copy it from the error thing. Copy, Control-C or copy that thing.
The whole thing.
And just paste it in Notepad and do what everyone does.
It's true. We do all do this.
I'm going to spotlight this awesome.
It's here somewhere. It's here somewhere. Wait, where is this?
You are welcome.
There it is. Yeah, this is not working at all. Oh, there we go. All right. I want that URL. That's a GitHub issue. That's the cheap version of docs, right? All right. So what am I supposed to do instead? Recommended action.
Use add. Oh, I see. You call this add thing.
Add database developer page exception filter in services. So I'm in the wrong spot. So I get rid of it from there, and then I come up here into my configure services. And after I've added my DB context, services.add database exception filter. Okay.
Then you call use migrations endpoint. No, that's different, right?
I'm not going to do that. I don't know what that is, honestly.
Okay.
All right. And then I'm going to restart the app. Close that. Come back here.
I think that's...
We can't really tell if it's working because...
Fix my head.
What's wrong with your head?
Sparkle.
Oh, you just...
Okay, let me give you the numbers.
What is your chroma color, Fowler?
441.
Just give me the hex.
Oh, no, green. Just pick green.
You just want green? I don't trust you.
That looks off though. No, mine looks off.
How about that? There you go.
Oh, hold on. My lighting is on.
There you go. I fixed it for you.
Is it?
No.
Am I gone now? Oh, wait, yes. Hold on.
I made you disappear. How's that? It's not great, but it's better than it was. For now. You're looking wonderful. All right. Our back end is working and it's running on 6. I've got squiggles in places. This is hot reload telling me I can't do that until I restart the app, which is fine. All right, backend's done. Yeah, so Brad is saying if you can't get it to work, it means you need more light. So I went through this myself today just for a little segue, just to prove it. This is what behind the scenes looks like. So I usually just run with this one light here, and now I've got 2 more key lights and I've got 2 floor lights as well in order to fill my green screen so that it actually works. So yeah, you may just need more lights, Fowler. All right, I'm going to do the front end. So we do the front end and then we'll circle back and we'll figure out if we want to refactor stuff. So we'll do the same thing. We'll do it in the project file this time because you were sad that I used the project property pages, right?
Yep.
Net 6.0.
It's inefficient.
Does the dot matter?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know, like, in the olden days, we would type...
Actually...
Like, we used to do this, right?
I think it matters.
You would do that in the olden days.
I think it matters. It matters. I wrote the code to parse, actually. I think it works for both in NuGet, but not for this thing.
So, keep the dot. Be explicit. Because if we ever get to version 60, then we won't know which one you mean.
Exactly.
In 54 years from now. All right, and then I'm not going to do this manually. I'm going to use the dialog to update all the packages. Sorry. See? Yeah, that looks fine. All of those, that looks wonderful.
Oh my god!
It's thinking. No packages found.
That was fast.
It was pretty fast. I'm just going to rebuild the whole lot. I'm just going to be absolutely sure to be sure. It's building. Back end. Back end. All built. All right. Let's have a look. It says the front end. Front end is reloading. I see the little reloading
This UI is beautiful.
Icon.
Who did this?
This UI?
Yeah.
Me.
That wasn't you.
It was me.
John Galloway. I think he fixed the CSS to give it a shadow, a drop shadow.
He probably did. It still says it's loading. I'm going to guess that it's disconnected.
It's loading. Is that what that means?
I don't think... Yeah, that's what that means. That was Pranav.
That is so subtle.
Let's control F5 it and go back again. There we go. All right. This can't be this easy. Like, nothing's broken when I've updated. I don't understand. I went from 3.1 to 6, and literally everything works.
Oh, we got a good question here. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
It's funny. I'm watching the mouse cursor in the Twitch stream.
Ah. So the reason is because of this.
So you don't store users somewhere else, Damian? Where they stored in your front end? It's weird.
So in this, and again, this app was put together in such a way that we could teach a bunch of concepts in a 2-day workshop. So we're not suggesting that every decision made in the architecture of this app is one that you should do. Of course not. There are trade-offs in every single app sort of architecture. But in this application, there's a back-end service which uses EF to talk to a SQL Server database. There's a front-end website which speaks to the back-end using HTTP client. It's a bunch of web services, HTTP services. But the front end has auth. And so instead of using delegated auth or some third party to handle the auth for us, we just use Asp Net Identity, right? Asp Net Core Identity, which needs a database as the default provider. So the front end has a database to store users, but it talks to the back end via services. And it means we get to like show off a whole bunch of stuff over 2 days. Let me put a password in here. I'm going to register myself.
Password.
How did you know?
Crazy.
Oh, I've already, wait. Oh, the front end database still works. I wonder if I can log in. This will be very surprising if this works.
Is it in LastPass?
Oh, look, it worked. So my password's correct, and you can see that this site is set up with a welcome screen that is rendered whenever someone logs in, but they haven't created a profile yet, basically. And we do this using some features in Asp Net Core Identity. Do you remember how we did that? There's like a thing in the thing. Is that under infrastructure? There's like an auth
Definitely a thing in the thing. It's definitely a thing in the thing.
Yeah. So we differentiate basically between a user and an attendee. So once you've signed into Identity, you are a user, but you're not an attendee until you've filled out a bunch of questions, basically.
Got a claim. I think the claim is stored.
That sounds right, actually.
Database, right? It's like.
Yep. And so we have something. I'm going to find it. It's going to be in here somewhere. There's an admin service, so there's obviously an admin role as well. But somewhere in here, there'll be an attendee thing. It's not there. I'm just looking at the code. I think the attendee stuff is actually stored in the back end, and then it's a service call to associate. And then if I recall, we have a service. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in an area. Here we go. We have a claims principal factory that we overrode. So this is a base type in Asp Net Core Identity. We are creating a subtype of that, and then we use that to modify the claims if the user is an attendee or an admin. So you can see it's actually calling the backend via the API client to determine if the user is an attendee. This gets called whenever a claims token has to be created. And so think of it basically when the cookie is written, right? That's the other way of thinking about it in this context. Someone has to create a claims token. It calls through this because we've got a custom one registered. And then we call to the backend to see if they're an attendee. And if they are, then we call make attendee on them. Make attendee is our method. It just adds a claim,
Yep.
with a bunch of stuff. Then on top of that,
request per request.
What's that?
So we can avoid doing requests per request to get
That's right.
if you are an attendee.
Yeah. So when it comes to user profile stuff, we can just calculate this once up front when the cookie is created, basically. And these claims get serialized inside the identity cookie. And so we'll know you're an attendee the entire time. If you wanted to store other stuff in there and you had the ability for the user to mutate that, like while they're logged in, like some profile management page, obviously you would have to go through the process in your code of reissuing the token. And I think there's actually a really simple method for doing that, if I recall, because we have a profile page in the templates, and I think it does that when you add 2FA, for example. All right. The other part of this that I wanted to quickly touch on was the fact that how did I get to this page? I logged in and I ended up on this page. If I hit search, everything I'm clicking takes me to this page right now.
Ooh.
Right? So I'm logged in, but it doesn't matter where I click. I always seem to get redirected to /welcome. If I bring up the network tab and we have a look at whether these are redirects or something else, I hit speakers and I'll just limit this to docs. So I hit the speakers and I got a 302, which is a redirect. and it redirected me back to welcome. So where is that code implemented? How is it that we're forcing people who are logged in but who have not filled out the welcome page to get redirected? That's a great question. Where did we do that? I think it was in what's that?
Page filter.
That sounds right. What would that be in? In pages?
Definitely not. Definitely somewhere more obscure where we can't find it.
Is there a word filter? The word filter does not appear anywhere.
What is it called? It's a filter, right?
It was an action filter of some sort.
I think it was a resource filter, wasn't it?
Resource filter?
No, we didn't call it that.
Doesn't exist. So it's not that. This is great. It's like going to someone's code base for the first time and trying to figure out how the app works.
Oh, it's there. Require login middleware. It was middleware.
Oh, it's middleware. Everything is middleware.
Makes sense.
If in doubt,
look at that.
Create middleware. All right, so there's a middleware that we wrote.
Yeah, that's what we did. We changed it because it used to be a filter back in the day, and then we made it endpoint aware.
I wonder why we changed it from a filter to middleware.
Because
it works with everything?
Endpoint aware. See? Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. So
we did this.
In Asp Net Core 3, we introduced the new routing system, which included the concept of endpoints. That's right. And so we could move this to just be plain old middleware. It could check what the endpoint is. And then I think we use endpoint metadata to check. Yeah. So like we actually look and see, is the endpoint decorated with metadata that says skip the welcome page? You don't need the welcome page. So for example, that must mean that there are links here I can click without filling this in. I'm going to hazard a guess at the privacy link. Nope, wasn't that one. Oh, probably log out. That's probably what it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to log out. So if we go and look at the logout page, which I'm going to guess is here. Yep, so it's been overridden. We scaffolded out just the logout and register pages. The rest of it is just coming from the identity package. If I go and look at the logout model, it's going to have this attribute on it. That's my guess. And my F12 to navigate's not working. Oh, there it is. It was just slow. There it is. Look at that. Skip welcome.
Skip welcome. Look at that.
So by decorating the model on our Razor page, that becomes metadata that middleware can look at. So there's no tie between this middleware and Razor pages or MVC. It's just this POCO attribute. This has no logic. This is just a marker attribute, as we call it. And then, like, if you're going to be really, really sort of anal about it, what you would typically do is actually have an interface like I skip welcome metadata.
Welcome.
And then you would have the attribute implement that, but then you would have your code that's looking for the metadata use the interface. Okay.
Yes. I agree.
And so this is what we do in the framework itself. You'll see in a lot of places where there are attributes that you put on controller methods or whatever else. They implement an interface, and the rest of the code in the framework looks for that interface as metadata. They don't look for the attribute concretely. Usually, there might be some cases where we do look for the attribute. Usually, okay. So that's kind of cool. So that way we're able to very easily orchestrate this whole redirect. What else did that middleware do? Like, so it basically, if it's not skipping, if the user is authenticated and the endpoint does not have this attribute, in other words, it's null or there's no endpoint, then go ahead and figure out if they're a attendee, which we know because that was stored as a claim. We said that before. It's in their cookie. Don't have to call the backend because they're already logged in. And if they're not an attendee, then we generate a link to the welcome page. That was another great thing about Asp Net Core 3, is that you can now generate links to endpoints, which whether they're MVC action methods, Razor pages, or anything else that you've registered an endpoint address scheme for, which is fully extensible. You can make one for any T that you like. Then you can generate links for it. So I get the link for this Razor page, even though I don't depend on Razor pages in this middleware, and then I just redirect to it, okay? Loosely coupled, layers are the code staying in the right layers where they have to. It is pretty clever. It does work pretty well. All right. That was a good little segue to I guess I should actually fill this in then, eh? Yes. Great. So now I'm logged in. If I click on that, you got your profile page. All of these pages these are like in the box. These aren't in my project. The only things I overrode in my project were the registration page and the logout page. And again, if you didn't know you could do that, this was a feature of Asp Net Core 3 when we introduced the identity packages or the identity UI packages, which aren't even packages anymore. I think they're actually, no, they are because they use EF.
They're packages still, yeah.
So if I go to my front end, you'll see I have ASP.NET Core
UI.
Identity, Entity Framework Core, and ASP.NET Core Identity UI. All that Razor UI is coming from this package, and it's discovered automagically by MVC because I register it in my startup class. Up in here in services, I add, where is it? Add identity somewhere.
Sure, it's in here.
Oh, it's hidden from you.
Startup filter.
No, it's over here in this area in the area,
right there,
right?
yeah.
View him now. Which one is it? There,
Hosting
identity hosting
startup.
startup. All right. So there's, it's kind of like a startup module in one of a better name. Okay. This is a pattern you can use in your own application. In fact, Nick did a video not long ago on using reflection or assembly scanning to clean up your code. This is a similar kind of idea. Although we don't scan assemblies in the framework by default, the only one that will look for things in is basically your application assembly. So this metadata assembly, metadata attribute, which applies at the assembly level, basically stamps a little bit of data into the application assembly. ASP.NET Core discovers that. And then after it's discovered it, it goes ahead and treats this as a startup module,
configure, yep.
basically, and calls configure on it. So that you don't have to pollute the rest of your startup class. Okay. All right. So there. Identity. This stuff is dropped in your app, but you can customize little bits of it, which is kind of cool. All right. I'm going to close a bunch of stuff because we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff. This app is updated, so we need to modernize it, I guess.
It runs it. It's done. Stream is done.
Stream's over. It really was that straightforward, but we know a bunch of stuff has changed, right? So I haven't even checked if the front end had any warnings or anything, honestly. We should probably go and do that first.
Has a warning, yeah.
All right, let's have a look. Okay, what's this one? This is obsolete. So it's got the same warning that the back end had. So I'll get rid of that one, and I will add the services.add database developer page exception filter. What is that? Well, you know the developer exception page that you typically add when you're in development, okay? And so there's a middleware down here, so that if anything throws, you get this nice, HTML-ified error page with all the headers and the exceptions printed with the source code and all the rest of it. You can extend this. If you have an exception of T that you want to change how the exception page is rendered, or if you just want to change how the exception page is rendered for all exceptions, you can add effectively a delegate that's wrapped in an interface into services, which is what this does, and it will take over the rendering of the page. And so in the case of Entity Framework, what they do is if it's a database-specific exception, the developer exception page you'll get talks about database stuff. It's like, oh, this exception probably means you forgot to run .NET EF database update, right? And in fact, previously it had a button on it that let you run the migrations directly from the browser, which was kind of awesome but terrifying at the same time. It has since been removed, but I do have some wishes that we could bring it back at some point. I think we could do it. We just need to think about it a bit harder. All right, so that's what that one does. What other warnings have we got? What's this one? It took me into my project file. Okay, web code generation templating depends on ASP.NET Core Razor language, but ASP.NET Core Razor language was not found. An approximate best match. That's a coherency issue.
Yeah.
So
what is where is that coming from?
So it's coming from the code generator. Scaffolding.
Did you update it?
I did. I updated everything.
You did? It's RC2.
Yeah. But it's saying that version of it depends on a version of Razor language that doesn't exist. So this is what we call in our world a package coherency error, which means that, how can I actually explain this? I want to draw a diagram, but I haven't got my thing set up to do that.
Wait, I can draw a diagram. Hold on.
Can.
Draw a diagram? Let me see. Can it fit on the screen though?
I can add it. We want to try it? I'm going to add your screen as a source, and we'll see if you can draw the diagram to explain this.
I would need, let me think. I could try screen sharing.
Yes.
Let me try my thing. Do I screen share? Yeah, I'll screen. Hold on. Yeah, I'll screen share.
Hold on.
I'll screen share.
Okay, you going to screen share?
Try screen sharing.
Okay. We're all waiting for you to screen share. I should have set this up, actually. We'll do it next time so that we can whiteboard while we're doing it.
Wait, screen share. I have to connect my monitor first. Connect.
See if there's any questions while you're doing that.
Oh, it's trying to connect to my Samsung TV.
Someone's saying we should just do we should just YOLO it with Paint.
Oh wait.
Oh, we could actually. I could just do that.
What's this shitty diagram time?
I could just do Paint.net. I have Paint.net, obviously. The fantastic Paint.net.
It does work to like do this.
Is it working? Is it actually going to work?
Yeah, it's going to
work. Are
you
screen sharing it?
Only thing that's weird is the audio switch somehow.
I don't see your screen yet, so you're not screen sharing.
Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So now I can screen share. Oh. Where's the whiteboard app? Put this.
Yeah, and as someone else has pointed out, .NET 6 is so easy to upgrade to. It's getting your webcam to work reliably. That is the difficult thing that we did today.
And camera's working is hard.
Okay. All right, I'm going to give you 5 more seconds, and then I'm just going to open Paint.net.
It's there. It's done. It's done.
Okay.
It's done.
Still. Okay. Here we go. And just wait so that everyone can see. There it is. There it is. There it is. Okay.
Does that work? Does that work?
Yep.
This is fast. This is fast. All right. So imagine you had package graph like this, where you had package A 1.0 is built against package B 1.0.
Okay.
Typically, we ship these packages together. On the org, you may have and B different versions. You may have A different versions. You may have A 1. A 1.0, A 1.0, 1.1, 1.1, B 1.0, B 1.1. What's happening is seems as though A compiles against B 1.0, O, RC2, blah, 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 blah. And this never got pushed to NuGet. It's some intermediate build. So what NuGet does is it looks for the highest version bigger than what is compiled against.
Okay.
And it ends up finding B 1.0, for example. So in this case, I think it's saying, where is your, do you have it still?
Do I have what? The error? Yeah, hang on.
Between this and your
I will.
Your package.
Yep. So there's the error.
So it's saying that in the error,
which is under your head.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me just.
No, I'll just copy and paste it. This is what we do for everything, right?
I'm gonna point to it like this.
There it is.
So it's saying that. So A in this case is Microsoft Visual Studio Web Code Generation templating. That's a long package name.
It is.
Depends on RC2.21511.1.
Right.
But apparently that version, it depends on 6.0 RC if Damian keeps moving the thing.
Sorry. So it depends on this version.
470, but apparently that version, that version is not on NuGet.org.
Right.
But
this version is.
Next version above that is on NuGet.org. So we apparently shipped this package with the wrong non-final RC2 build as a dependency.
Yeah. And I will admit something, because I know a little bit about how these are built. This package is built separately and released separately, I believe, from the big groups of other packages. So if you've ever looked at our GitHub repo, you'll know that there's a repo for the runtime, which contains .NET/runtime, which contains the CLR itself plus the BCL and the Microsoft.extensions packages now. Then there is a repo for Asp Net Core, which contains the Asp Net Core packages or assemblies that go in the shared framework, as well as the Asp Net Core packages that ship directly on NuGet and aren't part of the shared framework. And then Entity Framework Core has its own repo that's just packages and so on and so forth. This package is built as part of the Visual Studio tooling. And so its dependency version here, it gets pinned to a particular build saying, I depend on this version, right? And it'll work with a higher version, but if NuGet can't find the exact version, like you just said, you'll end up with a warning saying, well, I couldn't find this version, but here's the next best match. So it's not a problem in this case. It's just unfortunate. Our goal as a product team is to basically never have this happen. Like we actually, a lot of people work very hard for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of packages that we ship in every release so that this doesn't take place. Because as you can probably guess, managing these packages, their versions and the things that depend on them, having the correct version of the thing that just built, it creates a bit of a self-referencing kind of problem. And it's quite a complicated build infrastructure, which we call, what do we call it? Build flow? Dependency flow? A thing. There's a thing, we refer to it as internally. And you can see that this repo depends on that repo, so that repo has to build before this repo builds, and there's a whole flow that goes on. All right.
Well, there's a question.
Oh, go for it.
Adding it to the screen so everyone can see it. Could runtime issues occur when you have this warning? Yes.
Yes.
It can occur.
And the answer to that is always yes. It's an it depends, right? Strictly speaking,
depends.
the answer is, because you questioned it, is could it happen? Yes. Will it happen? It all depends on the package in question.
It's super
in this
unlikely.
case, it's probably fine.
The versions are so close. What likely happened was somebody said this is the final version of scaffolding.
Right.
But it compiled against the version before, the version that was built before for the dependency.
Right.
And they were not aligned.
Yep.
So to get coherence, you actually need everyone to stop building versions.
Yep.
And then everyone has to kind of agree on the final numbers.
And follow the layering.
Right? Exactly.
Which is why there's so much work put together I mean, people might remember, if they've been following our open source work for a while, we used to have a lot more repos for Asp Net Core. And there was an org, and then we had like a repo per package almost. Maybe not that bad. A repo per logical layer. And to try and enforce this clean dependency layering. Now we have fewer repos. We didn't quite go to mono repo, but we've got less repos than we had before. But there's still enough that keeping in your head which repo depends on which repo from a sort of organizational and versioning point of view is complicated. And as I said, we actually have a team that manages that specifically and builds infrastructure to manage this process for us. And as Fowler said, in this case, what likely happened is this is one of the packages where these versions don't flow automatically. Most of this is managed automatically now, as I understand it, or we have knobs that we can set. We can say we want to pin this repo to this version right now, perhaps because we're in stabilization. We're in a phase that Fowler just said. No one's allowed to build anything now. Like this repo is locked. We freeze all of its dependencies.
The branch.
Branch. Yep. Repo within a logical universe where that universe is represented by a branch.
Yep.
And so we freeze that one, we lock its dependencies, and then so that the next layer can build successfully against it. And then that continues until you end up with an installer, like the thing at the top. This might be one of those packages where it doesn't participate in the automation stuff, and it's just manually managed. Or it was pinned and it wasn't meant to be or something. I don't know. So in this case, it doesn't matter. But you can imagine a situation where you have a package that depends on version 4, and version 4 hasn't been released yet, but you said I depend on version 4. And then you pull that into an app, and NuGet goes, well, I can't find version 4 on NuGet, so I'll just give you version 2, because that's the only one I could find. And it'll do that, and it'll probably won't work. Or it might be that you say, I depend on version 4, but the package owner never posted version 4. They went straight from 3 to 5. Who would ever do that? Who would ever go from version 3 to version 5? But imagine you did that. NuGet, that's what happened here. Like it said, I want version 4. I can't find version 4. I'll just go to the next highest package that I can give you. In this case, which is 5.
You could say this should be an error. And we actually had a ton of debate trying to figure out if it should be an error by default. And
you're right.
It would have been too big of a breaking change. We actually ran restore on all the packages on NuGet, and we found a big subset actually had this problem.
Right.
That was like, I don't know, 5 years ago. I can't remember. I don't know what the state is right now. But because our mindset was, how could this possibly happen if you were compiling against something that was actually real? No, it happened here because we own all the dependencies, and we were building against internal feeds, and then we suddenly published to the public feed.
Yep.
But if you're deving against things that are solely public, why would you ever target a version that never existed?
Right.
That's a bug. You can turn this warning into an error.
Yep.
And make it error for these cases.
In fact, I think there's a different errant warning number if it has to substitute a lower version, right?
lower this.
It downgraded, and that's an error.
It's a failure.
It just fails.
Failures.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first example I gave before was wrong because I said 5 and it gives you 3. That'll never happen. It'll just say I can't satisfy it, but it will roll higher by default.
Higher, yeah.
But you get a warning.
Yep.
Now, as we said, the hope is that you don't come across this issue in NuGet.org packages.
It's a package authoring error.
It is a package authoring error. It's an easy one to fall into because often, as Fowler just said, you might be using a dev feed, maybe a GitHub Artifacts feed or an ASDO DevOps feed, and you accidentally keep the dependency, the version from there, and then you push that to NuGet.org, but it's the wrong version. And so every consumer of the package would get this error, or this warning, I should say. Someone points out here, in .NET Framework, we could make these warnings go away with binding redirects, right? Kind of, except this is actually a NuGet restore time logic issue, whereas in .NET, that was a runtime binding issue. And by binding, I mean the runtime coming across a type that it then needs to load the assembly for, and there's a process that it goes through there basically saying, I need to load this, I need to identify the assembly, and then I need to make sure it matches the one that I should be loading. If two things, going back to Fowler's diagram before, instead of those things being packages, if those are assemblies, you can have the same class of issue in the runtime. And in .NET Framework, it had an incredibly strict set of rules when it came to binding. They were more strict than this. It would basically just fail if there were two in the graph with different versions. Yep. And to fix it, you had to do a binding redirect. NuGet doesn't fail if it finds two versions in the graph. By default, what it does is attempts to lift one up to the higher version and silently work. This is a little different. This is saying you asked for this version and it doesn't exist. Like, I just can't find it anywhere. But I can find a newer one. So I'm going to put it in the graph and I'm going to continue the restore, but I'm going to warn you about it. In .NET Core and above, the runtimes policy with regard to loading assemblies was changed. It was relaxed.
It was, so
you don't get these errors anymore. And in fact, you don't even get a log message or a build time issue or anything. It's just like, if A depends on C version 1 and B depends on C version 1.1, 1.1 gets loaded.
It makes sense because the difference is on NuGet, you have a lot of choices as to what you can pick. You can pick highest, lowest, highest patch, lowest patch, like highest major, highest minor. NuGet picks the highest version, the lowest version higher than what you asked for to resolve this conflict. In .NET Framework, it would fail, even though you could only really have, I guess technically you could have more than one version, but you have A and B in the bin folder. A compiled against B 1.0. In the bin folder, you have B 1.1. You're literally going to load B 1.1. It's right there in the bin folder. Now, in theory, you could have B 1.1.1 in the GAC. You could have things in the GAC and locally.
Yeah.
So it went for the option of, okay, I don't know what to choose. I'm going to fail. And it was a little too strict, right? In .NET Core, there is no GAC. There's literally only probably one place you can load assemblies from. Like, it's right there. Yeah. Load B. I don't care what version it is.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right, so we're going to ignore these warnings then. Oh, that's the long way of saying we're not going to worry about these. We know what this is. This is transient. It'll get fixed when we ship .NET 6 for real in a week or so. Hopefully. I'll make a note to go and check that. Everything else here is just to do with hot reload, right? So because I've been making code changes while the backend application was up, I've got some errors in here being listed saying, you can't make that change and have it apply while the app is running. You'll need to restart. So that's fine. I can just ignore those. So I don't have anything else in the front end. I think we can start just trying to move this to maybe the new startup logic. That's probably the next best thing, right?
Yep.
Let's start with the back end. So one of the biggest changes in Asp Net Core 6, which you've probably heard about, is the introduction of minimal APIs, which you can kind of split into two categories. There's the minimal style hosting and boot up APIs, where you new up a host builder, configure your services, configure your middleware pipeline, and then start the application. There's a new version of that. And then there's minimal APIs in the sense of building HTTP APIs. So instead of using controllers and MVC and web API, you effectively are just using routing. Basically, you route to a delegate, and then there is a tiny bit of glue that generates some code to map you from the route and the route data and the query string values and a couple of other hard-coded things into the parameters of your delegate. Someone has made a very good suggestion here. I should probably commit this as a thing, like I got it working, right?
Yeah.
Updated to .NET 6.
Wait, you should make a branch first.
I did that at the beginning.
Oh, good.
.NET 6 stream. Yeah.
Good.
So I'm just going to check, and since it's fine now. And I did change the database string. I'll probably ignore that. I won't put that in there. Okay. Did that. I think we're good. I'll push that one up. All right. So let's look at what it means to update this startup. So in the prior to .NET 6, we had a program class, which was, fairly sort of idiomatic C#. And then we had the startup class, which was passed in here to this use startup method. And then this is where all your services configuration and your middleware configuration was. We have now condensed this into 2 layers. So let's first of all move.
I would copy the code.
Yeah.
Copy the pattern from my gist.
Oh, which one? Which one? The startup one?
Yeah. We keep it and then it compiles and then we do the whole.
So you mean move to web application first, but keep startup?
Yeah.
Oh, let's do it.
And then pull things in as we go.
So I don't need any of this. This is literal boilerplate. Like I mean, it's boiling. Look at it. There's nothing custom with this at all. So I'm just going to delete it. Okay. I don't need it. Everything.
Oh, so, did you?
Nope.
You got to turn on.
Not yet.
Oh yeah. It's not on yet.
All right. So there's a new type. I'm going to try and remember this from equals, what is it? Web application.
I will help you.
There it does. Dot create builder. Right. And then there's like a builder dot build will give me an app. An ATTP. And then I have to call app.run, right? So that's like the bare minimum thing.
Yep.
But it's not calling my startup class. So you're saying that there's
you should
a thing.
Actually, let's just do it here because it's actually easy to write.
Okay, you remember? Okay, let's do it.
Do new startup.
At which phase? Here?
Right here, yeah.
And I can't find it because I'm not in any
namespace.
Namespace? Yep. Okay. We'll fix that later.
You have to pass in configuration, maybe? Builder configuration?
Yep. So what is... I can just grab that off the builder. Is that there yet? Or do I have to wait until afterwards?
Configuration, yeah, that's right.
Cool.
And then call start.configure services.
Yep. And then what?
And pass in builder.services into there.
Okay. Okay.
And then after building... start.configure and pass in app and app.environment. App first.
Wow.
Right.
It's almost like someone designed this.
Crazy.
I know. It's amazing. Okay. Is that, and you're saying that's going to work?
It worked.
Okay. You ready? Looking for the build.
No.
Build started. You're covering the build status. That's great. Still going. Still going. There we go. It said it succeeded. Interesting. Oh, look at that.
It works.
Still works. Okay, so that was phase 1. So we got rid of our program main and we moved to top level statements.
Yeah.
And we moved to the new host, basically the web application style host, as opposed to the generic host, as we used to call it. Okay.
Pass in args to the builder.
Ah, the magical args.
Yeah.
So
and then, explain args, I guess.
Yeah, well, so top level statements there's no namespace here. We don't have a class. This isn't new in .NET 6. This was actually introduced in C# 9 as part of .NET 5. We just didn't update the templates to use it.
Never used it.
In this version, the templates will look a little bit more like this. We haven't finished yet, so you'll see how this changes a bit more as we go along. But this is only supported in one file in your project. Okay, and it's typically, you can name that file whatever you like. The compiler will figure it out. But idiomatically, it's program. That's what we've always traditionally called the entry point of a console-style application in .NET. So I've got my program file. Is there a class behind this, Fowler, that I'm not seeing?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just that it's not
magical.
I am going to make you prove it to me. I have IL Spy here. I want to have a look at what this looks like. I do have it. I just started it. I'm waiting for it. I really need to build myself a
Class. It's funny, in .NET, not in C#9, the class was unspeakable. Like, in compiler terms, I think they call those types unspeakable types.
Okay. What is that? And that's represented. That's a compiler term, not a runtime concept or anything. I see.
Yep. Types that the compiler can generate that can't be represented in actual C#.
Okay.
But only in IL.
I see.
So like closures and async state machines and all those weird symbols that you can't put in.
All right. So here's my app assembly, backend.dll. Let's open this in IL Spy. I did drag it in, didn't I? I thought I did.
You did. It's there. Oh, no, it's not there. You can drag it in.
I have to drag it into the left. I dragged it into the right. All right. So
IL to C#.
Can I zoom this in a bit?
Oh, you have IL with C#. What is that weird hybrid?
Oh, sorry, because I was writing some Reformit code a few weeks ago, if you remember.
Sharp Lab is super good for that, by the way.
Yeah. All right. So here's my back end, and we're looking for what? Program. There it is.
Program.
There's program, but it's internal.
Yep.
And it's marked compiler generated. Okay.
And the method is unspeakable, but the class is not.
The method is unspeakable.
It says that.
Oh, it's private.
It has that weird like symbol.
This thing?
Yeah.
Ah.
A name that like main in a thing, and it has a $sign.
Interesting. Oh, is that on? There must be a new version of IL Spy, because this is the C#9. I'll have to get a new one. Okay. All right. So it is there.
Open up main.
Sorry.
Show it.
Boop.
See?
So there's our code.
Here's your code.
That's all the code that we wrote, right?
Magical. So args magic variable then. That just works.
Args is just there when you do top level statements. And my usings are the ones that I typed in plus the one that the compiler added because it used this compiler generated attribute. Okay.
Awesome.
Quick segue. All right. So the other thing that we've done to make this sort of startup stuff cleaner is introduced a feature called Implicit Usings. C#10 introduces a feature called Global Usings, which now basically lets you put the global keyword before the using keyword. And then that will make this using available everywhere in the project. Okay, you can create a separate file called my global usings or whatever you want to do, and then you can just put them in there, put these globals in there, and they'll be available everywhere. On top of that feature, the SDK has introduced a feature called Implicit Usings. So if I come back to my project file, I'm going to type in Implicit Usings. You see I've got statement completion for it down here, Implicit Usings, and I'm going to say enable. If I hover over it, I should get some. Do I get some? No, it doesn't give me the description. I thought it would. All right, so I've got Implicit Usings enable. So then if I come back to here, look, it went gray.
Ooh.
Because I don't need it anymore. So I can delete it. I still have to do backend because this is in the backend, right? I'm using... Or...
show a feature and delete backend from there and then include it. Yeah.
I can do this. So I'm going to create a new item. I can put it in any item group to be clear, but I'm just trying to be neat. This is just opinion at this point, right? So I can create an item called using. There is a new using item type. And you can see there it says a C# global using to add to the project. And I can say include. And I want to include, what's the name of my project? Backend. If I was really clever and I knew MS Build really well, there's probably a variable.
There's a variable somewhere.
MS Build property that gives you the name of the assembly, right?
It's probably project name.
Or the default namespace or whatever it is, right?
Project name. I can't remember what it is.
Something like that. But I hard-coded it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So now if I come back here, I'm getting the same, it's grayed out because the editor's like, you don't need that anymore. That's going to be in, that's available everywhere. So now I have top level statements and I have no usings here necessary. James asks, are methods in the file normal methods or local methods? I wonder if we could figure that out. Let's do something.
Try it.
Is this local? Maybe. Not sure. All right, so I've created a method. It's right there. I think it's a method. It looks like a method, but that term is kind of specific. So I've created is there a generic? Is function the right? Is that generic enough? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Method, function.
It's a method. It's a function. It's a thing. So let's build this. And we'll go back to our IL spy friend.
Function.
Is it built yet? Build succeeded. Do I have to refresh? Is that how this works? Ooh. All right, so we're looking for here. Ooh, telephone's call ringing. Let's turn that off. All right.
You have main still, so did you build?
There's main.
You did build.
I did build.
You sure?
I did. We watched it. It said build succeeded down here. I'm not sure if it reloaded.
F5.
It says it did. No, not references. Program. Main. I don't see it there.
That's super efficient.
So it should be here, right?
Oh, try calling it? I don't know.
Let's have a look. Maybe it just trimmed it out.
Local functions typically complain if you don't call them. Is that the warning there that you're getting?
All right, let's force it to.
Being passed in. I feel it like you didn't build.
I did. I'll Control Shift B this time just to make sure.
What did you run before?
Huh?
So before you ran what? Did you run Control Shift B?
I right mouse clicked on it and said build before.
Oh, that's definitely what didn't work. I'm kidding.
All right, so we're here. I'm not trusting IL Spy at this point. Oh, there it is. I think it might have been trimmed by the compiler, honestly. Because it's a local, because it's a local function. So you can't reflect, you can't discover it lazily, right?
Yeah, you can't.
So the compiler's like, no one calls this, I don't need to include it. So whoever said that on the chat, I think you were right. So that is a local function. That was introduced in what, C# 9? Yep, so this isn't new, this is a thing, but you can put those in your top level statement thing. I can also put, so you say, well, can I put a method in here? No, but you can do this. And then you can say, you can make the static if you want, and you can make this static string. This is an actual method.
What's interesting is local functions are actually static functions.
They're static, did you say?
Yeah, so if you go to ILSpy and you change the version of C# to like 8,
yep,
it'll move it out of the function and put it on
it'll
program.
Just hoist it, kind of hoists it back.
It'll hoist it.
So someone's asking, can you return an int? Let's have a look. Yes. Which makes sense, right? Because that's very typical for program main, is that this becomes the exit code of the process when it's finished. All right, so now I've got an example. This is a local function. And this is just, these are methods on a class. Wow, let's find out. We've got ILSpy to tell us. You ready? Wait for it to build. Said it succeeded. Stuff is here. It is not a nested class.
Top level.
All right? It is top level. So because you're in top level statements, all the statements get hoisted into the synthetic program class. Any class declarations are just classes. So I didn't qualify this, so by default, it's internal, right? Yep, internal. But I could make public classes down here, right? And then they would be available to anyone who references this.
Go to ILSpy and change the version of C# to 8, and then look at program.
It's the same.
7?
Was local functions in 8?
Maybe it was in 8 too.
Uh-oh.
6?
Have they really been around that long?
No, 6.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. And click on the program class. It should show. Wait, where's the function? There it is. Where is it? Like
where
main,
is it?
You see it right there? It's unspeakable. It has that weird.
Oh,
that thing.
Here it is.
Yeah, click on that thing.
So that is main is okay. That's it's just a member. Is that what that is? It should be
a static class. A static. Oh wait, is that a delegate?
It might be just it got hoisted to a delegate.
It's in the top level namespace.
It's in the module. It's in the root of the IL module, right?
Click on it.
It doesn't go anywhere.
What? Interesting.
My guess is it's in here. Nope, it's not. I was wrong.
What happens with the public? Yeah, yeah. Let's try that too, I guess.
What's that?
Let's try all the things.
What are we doing now? Public for the class or for the function?
For the function. Doesn't do anything.
Doesn't work. In fact, I think it's invalid
slow.
syntax, is it not? Yeah.
Yeah.
You get an error.
It says no.
Can't do that because it's not a member of something that has visibility. It's literally, it's like a variable. That would be like saying, can I make a variable public? You cannot. So yeah, I still don't quite understand what's going on here. I just got to trust you. This thing.
That thing was like...
It might be a decompilation
Click on IL.
bug. Yeah.
IL. Oh, God.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Down here somewhere.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Right there. Right there.
Yeah.
On the left. See it? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it is there.
Yeah, see?
Okay.
It's on the class. It's weird. I didn't see it in C#. It should be there.
I think that's because maybe can it not be represented in C#?
Unspeakable? It's unspeakable.
Yeah, because it's unspeakable.
There you go.
So because it can't be represented in C#, when you decompile to C#, you just don't see it.
Can't be spoken.
You see the invocation site, but you don't see the declaration. That's what it looked like. Interesting. This is what people do with their spare time, right? They just like decompile stuff for fun and try and figure it out. All right. Let's go back to the current century. And all right, so we've got our top level statement. All that stuff is done. We don't need this anymore. We'll come back up here. I don't need this anymore. And we've got our implicit usings. Nice. What's next? Startup. Right?
I would copy this. I would copy this code first. And actually, are we doing backend first, then front end?
This is backend.
Okay.
Let's do all backend. Hang on. Let's make a step. So this is a, what did we do? Move backend to top level statements and web application. Yeah? Kept startup class for now. Beautiful. That works. All right, what's next? I want to get rid of this startup class. I think we can do that now, right?
We still got 106. This is pretty good. 103.
Nice. Let's move this startup class in here. Yeah?
Yep.
I'm going to do what it seems like the most naive thing I could possibly do, which is like take all this code that's in configure services, and instead of calling that, and instead of newing that up,
Be refactoring.
I'm just going to do that. And then it's like, but that's not services. I can cheat and just say, well, oh, look, it completed it for me, right? That works, except now I don't have a bunch of stuff in scope. So I can control dot my way to glory. That's in my app. That's checking a runtime thing. That's a property.
Their configuration.
So I'm going to bring in EF. And this is now builder.configuration. There we go. This is something I have to import.
Undo.
Okay.
So cool feature.
Okay.
Get rid of that completely and just add open paren, close paren. And show target type new. There you go.
Target type. What's the last part? Target
new.
type. It's just target type new. That's all it means.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, that's C# 10 or 9. That's 9, isn't it? I can't remember.
10.
Gosh,
No, it's
that's
10, I think.
All right. And same again, but this time instead of calling configure, we're going to grab everything that was in configure.
Yep.
And app is the right thing. Now, saying if I'm in development, now guess what? You don't have to do this anymore. It's on by default in development. It only took us 6 versions to think, you know what? We should just include the developer exception page by default. So you don't have to do that anymore. That is Swagger and Swashbuckle. That's all fine. That's route. You don't have to call that. And you don't have to call that. You can just put both of these directly on app. We just kind of munged a bunch of stuff together, right? And it doesn't matter what order you call. Like if you do, order still matters. Let me not say that. You still need to be cognizant of, I called this thing and then I called that thing. Some things now evaluate immediately so that the next statement can build on the first one. And obviously you can't start configuring your middleware pipeline on app until you've called build on the app builder, right? So there's still order that's going on here. But when it comes to middleware and endpoint mapping, if you're not calling use routing explicitly, this order doesn't matter at all, right, Fowler? Because these are just being added to a collection that then is spilt into when something asks for endpoints.
Do you wanna use minimal APIs for this run?
This looks horrible, right? This was this is a fallback. Actually, isn't there a
map fallback?
There's a first class map fallback now, right?
Yep.
Look at this, and it takes a delegate.
Yep. You can make it return result.redirect as well.
So I'm just going to pass it a delegate, and I'm just going to return result.redirect, and we're going to redirect to Swagger. Redirect, like so.
Yep.
When was this introduced?
Preview 7.
Oh, this is brand new, map fallback.
6, yeah. That function is been there since 3.1.
Oh, we just weren't using it in the workshop.
The new overload is just the new overload is the minimal API overload.
Okay.
You do any function.
So this whole startup class, this is 51 lines. I'm gonna zoom out. This is it. We replaced.
This is super spaghetti. You should fix it. I'm kidding. You should fix this.
Where's the spaghetti? Nothing's calling into anything
I'm just
else.
trolling you.
Oh, okay.
You should change runtime information that is OS platform to the new API for that.
Ooh, yeah. What is that API?
Operating system dot is Windows. And the linker actually understands this and will trim things out if you publish for a different
When was that introduced?
This version.
Oh, so that's brand new as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to replace this, which means I can get rid of that. Nice. Like getting rid of it. What namespace is this in? Just system? Oh, that's beautiful. I don't like the ordering of that. That's better. Okay. We've got EF, we've got JSON. You know what? I kind of just want JSON on all the time, don't you? Don't you just want this like in scope all the time?
Unless you use JSON.NET, sure.
No, but in this app. Like if I'm going to use JSON, like I'm going to put this in my project file.
You mark it global. Let's call it.
I could. Right, I could do this. Can you do global and top level? I don't know.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere.
Okay, look. So I could just do that, and now it's available everywhere. But if I don't want it to be in here at all, I can do the same thing I did before. In fact, I'm going to do it for backend.data as well. So I'm going to do this.
If you put namespace, backend, top level program. I don't know. Do those two things work together? I don't know if that's true.
All right.
Someone asked this question. Let me put it up.
Yeah. Hit me. Ooh, that's interesting. Can we change the namespace of the program class?
I don't think you can do that.
It explodes.
That works. That doesn't work now.
Doesn't
so,
like it.
On a related note, can you that?
Ooh.
Yes, it is.
It is. So if you want to change the visibility of the class or add stuff to it, I added other classes here before, but you can also do this. I can do public partial class program. And now the compiler will go, oh, you want it to be public? Fine, I'll make it public. Or you can just leave the accessor by default, but now you can add members to program. And you could either leave it in the file, like we're doing here, or put it in another file, whatever you want. But I'm not saying you're going to have to use this at all. The most common use case is likely going to be making it available to unit tests. If you want to get stuff off the program class, I guess. But beyond that, I don't, But you can do it. The design allows for it. You just do that. Okay, what else can we change in here? So this is multi-platform, this thing. It uses SQL Server. I think, can we clean that up with these are void, can we clean this up with a switch expression or something?
No.
No, because it was not a return thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me clear this question.
All right. What else? That's fine. This is fine. There's nothing. We've got a custom converter in here. Well, I think it's an inbox of converter, but we're adding it. That's fine. Got health checks. We've got our DB context check off health checks. Nice. Where do we add the don't we have new methods for this?
We do.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Question first. Ask the question.
Which namespace auto-generated program gets? Well,
none. specifically. We actually had a long design meeting about that, and we opted to do none because if you didn't have none and we inferred it, you need options to turn it off or change it or whatever.
Right.
So.
Yep. Someone asks, doesn't SQL Server now run on Linux? Why am I doing this? So the answer is yes. When we first built the workshop, it didn't. The second part is that in order to run it on Linux, the most general way is with a container. You grab the SQL Server container. It's possible we could have the workshop do
We could change it, but it's just a long time ago we did this. So
yeah. I mean, frankly, if I was building this now, I'd probably just leave it SQLite everywhere.
Until you deploy, and then you're screwed.
Why? Only if you need to do more than one instance.
In real life.
Yeah. I know.
So just okay, let's change to SQL Server then.
Well, I wanted to point out these new methods. We have
do that and make it just SQL Server. Forget SQLite.
Okay, so we now have these new top level methods on the services collection for setting up Entity Framework with a provider. So these are provider first or provider centric services methods. So rather than saying I'm going to add my context and then inside the options delegate I'm going to tell it if it's this or that, I can just say add SQL Server of application DB context, and I think you pass the connection string if I recall, like this. And then I can just get rid of all of that.
That's so much easier.
Look at that. Now I think isn't there a magic string you can pass to this that will look in configuration for you?
Yeah, it's
like name database equals or something.
I think so. Name equals, I think.
Let's have a look.
But that's so giant.
It's a string, right?
Yeah, I think it's name equals this lowercase, and I don't even know if that matters.
What was the thing? What did I just deleted? I can't
remember.
Connection.
It was he even like cut half the line. He did the whole line.
Is it that?
Lowercase n. This is gonna blow up for sure.
See if it's running.
Definitely won't work.
Let's have a look.
I have no faith.
It's rebuilding.
It's not reload?
I mean, this is just browser refresh. I don't think it's actually doing it. I think it lost connection. Let's force it. Build. Building.
Just hit bet. Is this gonna work?
I have no idea. I don't know what this is, but it doesn't look right. It might need quotes or something. I don't know.
I know you can maybe do it in the DB context constructor, but I'm not sure if you can just pass it as the name of the connection string. Can you?
Oh, it's not even running.
It crashed the whole process? Incredible.
Well, we've been doing a lot of building and stuff, so. All right. Okay, there it is. Does it work?
Did the front end work? Hit the front end. It works. Holy what?
It worked. Look at that. Magic configuration string. This isn't new. We just didn't know about it till the EF team said, oh, you know that you can simplify this and just pass in a string, and we will parse that and go off and look in config for you. So that's pretty cool. Name equals default connection.
You can get rid of the EF using as well. Look at that.
Yeah. Look at this.
Oh, because you have it in the project.
Clean. And then this returns services. So I can say these are related. So I'm just going to put them in one logical. See? Beautiful.
Nice.
That's not bad. That's pretty cool. So why does this work? If I go back and look at my app settings, there's a named node called connection strings, and then inside that, default connection. So EF by default, if you say name equals something, it'll look for it in the connection strings configuration section. That's just the default behavior. So that's kind of cool. All right. Is there anything else here we can clean up?
I think so. Scroll down.
You can use Swagger defaults, but because I'm naming it, you can't, unfortunately. Like, I always find this kind of duplicity a little weird, but once you name it, you have to point the front end at the back end, I think.
Echoing. What?
All right. I think that's the back end done. I can delete my startup class. It's gone. And and we can. Well, we've got like 15 minutes before you have to go. All right.
Yep.
What do we want to do? Do we want to? We've already seen this. Do we want to try and convert one of these backend controllers into a minimal API?
You want to do front end and back end like this first?
Well, I'm saying you've only got like 12 minutes.
True.
Right. So we could just do this again on the front end, or we could try and use minimal.
Commit this part first.
Oh, commit this part. Yeah. All right. Move backend or remove startup from backend. Beautiful. Look at that. Look at all that deleted code. Oh, lovely. Use implicit usings.
This is a good question. Let me put it in here.
Okay. So this person really likes minimal APIs. Do you think it hides a lot of boilerplate from newbies, or was that the intention? It was both. It does hide a lot of boilerplate from newbies, and that was the intention.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just from newbies. We were trying to hide it. We were trying to remove the need for repetitive boilerplate that exposes concepts that you just don't need to interact with until you do. Now, the thing is, when I say until, you might never need to. You might happily build dozens of Asp Net Core applications and never have to customize how the generic host bootstrapped into the web host, for example. But all that code was in program.cs before we started this, okay? All that code, if we look in front end, I don't know if you recall, I said before there was nothing custom about this code. I'm going to hazard a guess, in like at least 8 out of 10, if not 9 out of 10 apps, no one changes this code because they do it all in startup, okay? This code is powerful. You can do a lot here, but you don't need it unless you need it. And there's really only a few advanced concepts where you need it. The other thing was this separation of like this method, create host builder and main. This was due to a weakness, basically. We had not done the work or sat down and thought about how could we make this code here executable from outside of this application, like when .NET EF invokes it, for example. I mentioned before, .NET EF like boots your app and then reaches inside of it and pulls stuff out. It does that using this, create host builder. But it always just looked messy. Like it's not type safe. Like there's not a contract where you're implementing here that's enforced by the compiler. It's not an interface. But we kind of made this a convention, and it always bugged me. So we got rid of it. Fowler actually did the work. We did a little bit of idea design, and then Fowler did the trickery. And there's a great blog post by, I think it's Andrew Locke, that pulls apart how we got rid of this method in .NET 6. So you can just put stuff in main. If you're using web application, it just works. All right. Nick says he's run an experiment with graduates at work that had no exposure to ASP.NET. They find minimal so much easier to wrap their head around. That's fantastic, because that's what we found when we did the user studies with Feather, which was the first prototype of this that Fowler wrote back in 2019 and 2020, and Maria ran user studies with the help of the dev UX team. And it found similar things. When you expose developers who had never seen ASP.NET, but they had used Express and PHP and other web frameworks to this style, they were like, oh yeah, this looks familiar. And very often, if you ask them up front, what were you expecting? They were expecting, enterprise. A lot of people called it enterprisey. They were expecting to see like structure that was very focused at enterprisey type stuff, which is odd. Like it's a label that we wear and that we've been given, but plenty of people building Node apps in the enterprise. Plenty of people are building PHP in the enterprise, Python.
Okay, it's funny. We had one person say, "My dad does .NET." As a thing, he was like, "That's for older people who like do that kind of serious stuff." And I was like, "That's interesting perception." We got two questions.
Here's a counter. Doesn't hiding stuff make people less aware of how things actually work? Pros and cons. Yeah, everything is a trade-off. And I'm not going to tell you it isn't, because Fowler, you'll often hear Fowler and I say publicly, I know Nick Craver's a big fan of this too, this axiom, which is everything in this industry is a trade-off with what we do. But our job as product owner and designer and engineering architect is to try and make those trade-offs based on whatever goal we think is the highest priority for a given release, while still keeping in mind the longer term things that we need to take into consideration. Ryan Novak did a great talk about this at NDC London. I think it was that last one we were at, Fowler. I think it was that one.
Yep.
About, I was like day in the life of an Asp Net Core architect or framework architect. And he talks about some of these design processes and thought processes that we go through whenever designing things. It's never just as straightforward as we want the API to look like this in version 7. Everything we do now has kick-on effects later down the road. And sometimes we have to do things in a way that we know sets us up as framework owners for changes further on down the road, or has to be done, we're restricted by what has come before us because we're not working in green fields. We can't just build the API we want. We have to build an API, design it in a way that it coexists with not only people's code, but an entire ecosystem. And we talked about that a lot as part of Minimal. We really did. Like, we understand that moving to this by default, which for a while we were actually contemplating not moving all of the templates to this very early on. We ended up doing it in Preview 7. Meant that every project from now on would look like this, and documentation would need to be updated, and people's blog posts would now look different. We did talk about that stuff extensively, but we felt that the need to start pushing .NET's audience beyond our incumbent user base to new users who perhaps aren't exposed to a lot of the concepts, and because of the findings of the user studies that we talked about and the types of things that Nick talked about, was worth the trade-off. And I'm happy to say that, a lot of our existing customers really like it as well. It reminds me a bit of when we did Razor Pages, which was my baby back in .NET Core 2. And a lot of people didn't like it until they got convinced to try it. And then they were like, oh, this is actually really nice.
Yep.
Because we had a very specific goal in mind when we built it. And a set of trade-offs that we made. And I'm still, I'm still quite proud of where we landed with Razor Pages today. And I'm hoping we'll feel the same way about this in, 1, 2, 5 years from now. How often are we planning to do this? Maybe we should do it more often now that we're set up. You've got your PC and your green screen now, and I've mucked around with mine. Regular schedule? I don't know. Maybe we'll just see if we can get one more first. And then if that works out, we'll see if scheduling something where we just do this, unscripted, let's go and look at some code. Because of our positions, like my title is PM architect. Fowler is a software architect. We basically do similar jobs, but you can kind of think about, we have a Euler diagram. We overlap. There's a bit of what we do in the middle that overlaps and that part is like API design, thinking about .NET overall. But Fowler is obviously much more on the side of engineer. So he commits a lot more code than I do. He's involved in a lot more of the code discussions and the design discussions for wider things. He has larger scope. And I, as a PM architect, will think more about product stuff sometimes, and we'll look at product related stuff that isn't necessarily strictly code. But we overlap in this sort of central area, which is we design stuff. We pair program and like bash stuff out in Notepad and say, does that feel good? Does it look right? Let's try it 4 different ways and see if it feels nice. What's the trade-off if we do it this way versus that way? And then we bring more people into that discussion as we go. So yeah, maybe we should do more of these where we just do that kind of stuff. I don't know. We'll see what people think. All right, we have 4 minutes. Can we change one of these into a minimal API?
Let's do one.
All right, so it's got to be an easy one here.
Attendees, I think that's one function. Oh wait, this is one too. Search. That's a good one.
Search, or shall we do like sessions, the one that returns the homepage? Let's do this one.
Is that an easy one?
I mean, it's just this. It's literally just this link statement.
You want to try something super weird? Hold on, let me see this first. You want to try something super, and maybe we shouldn't do that.
You want me to like map this as that's what you're going to do, right? Like, this is just a delegate. Just pass it this.
Let's try it.
It will actually work in this case. So what Fowler is saying, let's leave the method here, and I'll just comment this out.
Yeah.
All right. So that routing doesn't know about this because we haven't marked it. But I'm just going to leave this method in this class.
You need to change the return type result though. I think that's the difference.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, because of this.
Yeah.
This may not work because of that. All right. So let's do the next best thing. Let's grab this. I will comment that out so that we know that we don't have it anymore. And I'm going to come over to program. I'm just going to do it in here because why not? App.mapget. What was it? Like sessions?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take anything. And all right, so this is, I don't need
DB
any.
context. The attendees DB context.
Okay. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's do this. This needs a DB. So I'm going to pass that in. Attendees. No, it's application DB context, isn't it? Yep.
Async.
And I'm going to mark it async. Okay. And this, this extension methods, that's a shame. Everything else. So control, I have to bring in my EF now. That's it. I mean, that was a fairly simple one. It's the simplest one in the app probably. But still, I think this will work. Okay. Let's Shift F6. I'm going to build that project. It is on my key bindings anyway. All right. Back end's reloading. Okay. Refresh the front end.
Holy crap. Debug, attach, see if it's working.
It worked. You don't believe me, do you?
Attach. Make
Control
sure it's
Alt
working.
P.
Make sure it's in the API.
Let's attach to both instances, front end and back end, because I don't know which one is which. And we'll put a breakpoint here. Okay, you ready? There's no caching, right? That didn't work. Liar! No. All right, that was
way too easy.
I think this URL's wrong.
Yeah, me too.
So I think it's meant to be. Let's go have a look.
Hold on, look at the controller. It says sessions controller.
Oh, does it?
Right.
Is it API slash?
Oh, is it?
Is it?
It might be. Check.
Controller. Can I just look at Swagger? Like, won't it tell me? Oh, whoops.
Actually, you're right. That's not working.
Oh.
You broke it.
I broke the back end. Quick, let's fix it. All right, what do we do?
What's the error? Hit the actual Swagger endpoint. The JSON endpoint.
Why is that not alt tabbing? V1. Oh gosh, this thing.
I have no idea.
This URL always bugs me.
It's like you have a conflict.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Ambiguous HTML. So I've got too many. The commenting it out wasn't enough.
Make it private.
Build. Why did I have to do that?
Because it discovered it for some reason.
But it's not marked with an attribute.
That's why it's complaining. It's saying you have a thing and you didn't put an attribute on it. You made a mistake.
I thought it was saying ambiguous because I had two of them.
It's not ambiguous.
It's what it said though.
No. Didn't it say you messed up? You didn't have an attribute?
Well, it worked now.
Click on it. Oh no, that's not it.
Well, that's the Swagger. That's working. And then if I go to /sessions, there's some stuff.
Debug.
And then the front end's broken.
What is this? Oh.
So it's not serializing the way that we expect.
Wait, what?
Because of this. I bet you I didn't take the action result out of it. Oh, I did.
You did. One second, go back. Why is the thing the wrong content type? Oh, wait, hold on.
The front end talking to the back end. So the front end is not able to.
No, the back end is returning the wrong content type.
Yeah. Oh.
What?
Whoa, that's interesting. Let's have a look.
Stop shipping .NET 6. There's a bug.
That's right. The correct content type.
That's good. So what's the front? What's the front end blowing up at? Why is it thinking that it's list text HTML?
I don't know.
Oh, is that sessions or is that something else?
Session response. Oh, we may have done the wrong one. I think we've made this mistake before. No, there it is. Map session response.
You have to convert it to thing.
To what?
We did. We converted to the.
Right here.
We did the DTO.
Yeah, this is returning conference DTO session response.
Click on the sessions controller again. Let me see the controller.
It's literally that straightforward. Can't let this beat us.
No, it has. I can't go until this is fixed. Hold on. So
It's super close. I think next step is we need
For the front
to attach a debugger on the front end.
we are still using the old way to deserialize JSON on the front end.
Oh, really?
I wasn't using the new JSON thing apparently.
I thought that
Those
we
got
were
on
ready.
5 or 6. 5.
Which one? Oh, I
API
see.
client. The API client helpers should be
Here.
using the new JSON APIs internally.
Well, that's. Oh, do you think we should change? Yeah, I don't. That's not going to be it. This looks like it.
Read as async looks for a formatter based on the.
I see.
It's using the old web API content negotiation to find the formatter on the front end.
I see. And so there is something. Why is it though? Like obviously this API is returning a different response now, right?
Let's look at the response. Let's debug the sessions. Get sessions. API call.
In the front end, right?
Yeah, in the front end.
Yeah. All right. So that's in this API client. Get sessions async. That's this one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hold on. API / sessions. Yep.
I was right the first time.
So that means it's returning a page that's for a format. Why is it returning HTML?
Because it's an error.
In development? Why is it returning? Oh, in development. No, wait. It's text, isn't it?
Let's have a look.
What is it getting back?
I mean, this is what it's.
You're in the browser.
I am.
We do content. We do conneg now.
That's what it's returned because we put map fallback. We changed it to map fallback. So if nothing matches, it redirects. And then the front end followed it, and you ended up with it was getting the Swagger UI.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
So this was all due to
okay.
wrong URL. We mapped it to should have been that, which is what I think I said that. I just didn't trust myself. It was that.
If you had looked at the wait, did you look at the Swagger? Did we look? We didn't look at the Swagger, did we? Oh, God.
All right. I think I actually said, won't the Swagger just tell us? And I didn't do it.
You look at it, yeah. It's right there.
All right. So now if I go to API / sessions, oh, look, we get JSON.
Yay.
And look, the front end works now.
That's awesome. So go back to the
And now
Swagger.
let's attach the debugger and prove that it's in our minimal method. Boop. Okay. Now we can refresh this page. And it still did.
Are you attached to both things?
I thought I did. I mean, it loaded. It mapped the symbols.
It did.
I don't know where else it's coming from if it's not coming from there.
Do that again. Do a control like 5 or something. Hit the API in the browser. Do that.
Oh, the front end must be caching. I must have added caching code. I just can't remember it.
It is caching.
Oh, there you go. That's why. Do I have a cache escape thing? That sounds like something I would do. Is there a way to force it? I thought there was a way to force it. Where is it? Index. Look. Memory cache.
How long is it caching for?
I think I had a way to turn the cache off by the query string.
Is it 5 minutes?
Nah, that's it. It goes for...
An hour!
An hour! It works. Oh, you want to prove it? Okay, let's make it from seconds.
Let's kill the process and do it over.
To. Okay.
That's fine, actually. That's good.
And
Did you hot reload?
Yeah, I did.
Is it?
That's it, but it won't work because it's inside the cache key.
It's cached already.
So we don't invalidate memory cache. So let's stop. And we'll just hit F5. And we'll run it.
Good time. Someone asked, what's a good time for the cache? That depends on your data.
I mean, Nick will tell you sometimes the best cache is no cache. It all depends. It really does. Again, we did it in the workshop because we wanted to have a module that showed you how to use memory cache. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for your app. Hey, there we go.
Yay.
So now it's calling it.
Wait, so do me one favor. Go to the Swagger again for the backend.
Okay.
Before I go, I want to see if this is all messed up.
Oh, I haven't added it.
It's
right?
gone, right? It's
yeah,
gone
because I didn't add it yet.
Wait, it's still there. Look at that.
No, that's a different one. That's the ID. That's getting a particular
no.
session.
Oh, the post is still there. Hold on.
Yeah, because we didn't get rid of it. Yeah, there it is. So
Okay,
if you want it to show up in Swagger, there's only one more step you need to do, which we didn't do yet.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
And that will just call it the end for today. So we come up to services and we have to add services.add endpoints API Explorer. And then what that does is anything that you've mapped as an endpoint directly, like this, will now get added to MVC's API Explorer. It's not ideal. It's the best way. It was the trade-off that we made in .NET 6. There might be some future version where libraries like Swashbuckle and NSwag don't go via API Explorer. They just use metadata on endpoints, and they don't. So, but this was the easiest way to get the existing libraries to work. So now, if I run that again, we should be able to see our Swagger page. There it is.
It's there, but it's in the wrong.
It's in the wrong thing because it gets a different name by default.
Can you change it with tags?
Yep.
Right.
All right. So we want it in the one called sessions. Is that right?
Yeah. Does that work yet, or do you have to update Swashbuckle? I don't know.
I think it's been updated.
Did you update it?
I updated Swashbuckle to the latest 6.2.3. I think it is.
Let's try it.
All right. So I've used the sessions tag, which is the same that is defaulted for MVC, which is based after the controller.
It works.
And look, there it is. So now it's right next to these are API controllers. This is a minimal API. And you wouldn't know.
The casing is killing me, but
whatever. My guess is that is because of the route.
It's a controller name, yeah. It's controller.
So if I change this to that would fix that.
Yeah.
Right? But whatever. All right.
This is awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, that's fast.
That was somewhat successful. We need to fix your camera and chroma key again, but I will let you get. Thanks everyone for joining. We will let you know if we're going to do this again, and I will, once this is up on Twitch, I'll download it and post it to my YouTube channel for folks who want to watch it again for some reason, or for those who haven't seen it yet. Until then, we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.